Hello everyone, welcome back to Owen's Treats. We are going to be making a treat inspired by the movie Turning Red. As you can see, I have my little panda friend here. For today's treat, we are going to be making macarons. And I know what you're thinking, you're probably freaking out. It's okay. I found a really easy recipe. It doesn't have that many ingredients. It has quite a few steps, so we'll get through it. Let's try it out. To start, we have our ingredients. 1 3/4 cup of powdered sugar, 1 cup of almond flour, and then we have our 3 egg whites and we have them at room temperature, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, a half teaspoon of vanilla extract, our red food coloring, a pinch of salt. We have a sifter. You need this. You'll need a stand mixer, and then you'll also need some buttercream. You can buy it at a store, but I had extra sitting in my fridge. Whisk, spatula, a piping bag with our piping tip. So for our first step, we're going to combine our dry ingredients. So we have our powdered sugar, and then we have our almond flour, and then we have our teaspoon of salt, and we're going to whisk these, and we're going to make sure they're well combined. And then we have our sifter. I like to do 3 scoops at a time of half a cup, just so you can get everything sifted quite evenly. And then we're just going to sift. And the purpose of this is that for sifting, you want to get out those lumps. So for our next step, I'm going to sit down because this is going to take a while. We're going to whip our egg whites at their room temperature until we get them to a soft peak, and then we add in sugar, and then we're going to get them to a stiff peak. So we're going to add in our egg whites, and then we're going to whip them on high until they form soft peaks, and then like I said, we're going to add sugar and then stiff peaks. Okay, so now that we got our egg whites to our soft peaks, we are then going to add in our sugar gradually and our salt until they form stiff peaks. Then we'll add in our vanilla and our red food coloring. Then we're going to check our consistency. And we're at soft peaks, so we're going to keep whipping them until they reach stiff peaks. And so now we have reached stiff peaks. And you'll know you've reached stiff peaks because when you take it out, it should reach a little peak at the top, and it should be stiff, and it shouldn't flop over. And they should look like this. So then we're going to add our food coloring. You want to get gel food coloring. I have red, and you want to use red because it's our theme for today. And so we're going to add in our red food coloring until I get a nice red. And then we will incorporate our egg whites into our batter. And that'll be our next step. So let's add in our food coloring. Looks like a murder scene over here. Then we're going to set our whisk aside. So we're going to hold our egg whites a little bit more. And now this bakes lighter than what it seems like. So it might bake a more pink if you add less food coloring. So you want to add more since it's natural white. So now that we have our egg whites to a nice kind of red, we are then going to add dry ingredients to our whipped egg whites a little at a time. So that's about good. And then we're going to fold them in. So the way that you fold is that you go around the bowl, you scrape the bowl, and you scrape the underside of the bowl, and then you fold on top of itself. Alright, so now that you got all your flour incorporated, and you kind of got it to that nice little batter kind of consistency, that little area, a good way to test if your batter is done is that you lift it up with a spatula, and if you're able to do a full figure 8 with the batter, then you'll know you're good. And you want to make sure it doesn't break, or it's not loose, or it's not too heavy or too light. So it should make a nice figure 8. So, I passed the figure 8 test with my batter, so it's all done. And then our next step is getting it into our piping bag and getting ready to pipe. So that's what your batter should look like. Mine's next red. It might show up different on the camera. So let's move on to the next step, which is piping. Move kind of fast because you don't want your batter to harden, basically. So we have our piping bag, or a Ziploc bag as I'm using. And either one works as long as it has a flat end, which you can pipe easily with. So we're going to snip our end. And we got our piping tip with a circular end. And we're going to put our piping tip in. And then we're going to fold it once and then twice over itself. And then we're going to put it into some sort of container, some sort of tall glass, a cup even. And we're going to have it like this. And make sure your piping tip is folded at the bottom so it doesn't leak out. And then we're going to take our batter and we're just simply going to scrape it in. Okay, so now that we have our batter in, we have our baking sheets lined and we got them cut to precision. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our batter on the end of our spatula and we're just going to plop it down in the corner. And then we're going to press it down. And this way the parchment paper stays in place as you're piping. And one last precaution before you start piping, make sure there's no ridges or bumps in your parchment paper and you have it nice and smooth. Because we don't want uneven macarons. Okay. So now that we have our parchment paper is ready, take our bag, we're going to zip it up or twist it up. So you leave a little air pocket at the end. Then we're going to twist inside the bag. And then we're going to lift it up. And the piping bag should be ready to pipe. Leave off an end. Keep twisting. Actually, I'm never perfect with piping these, so don't worry. And then we're going to start piping. So put on pressure. And you want to pipe in one even area. Take a nice looking area. And then make sure they're a little distance apart. So you don't want them touching because that's going to ruin them. And so there we go. We have our cookies laid out. Don't worry if they're a little uneven. That's okay. They'll settle out. But what we want to do next is that we're going to tap them. And this is one of the best parts of making macarons. We need to tap them at least 5 times on a flat surface as hard as you can. So, and this gets rid of the air bubbles on the inside. And you want to do this pretty hard. So like this. So we have this tray done, and you might have to go back and do them again, depending on how your macarons look and what the air bubbles are like. And then we're going to do it again with this tray. For this next step, this is the most important step out of all the other steps that we've done so far to making a nice macaron. We're going to let these sit for at least 30 minutes to an hour and a half. And we're just going to let them sit. And you want to make sure that once they have dried out on the top, you can run your finger over it and it's completely dried, completely smooth. And then that step is going to help them lift in the oven when you bake them. And that's how you get that crucial little foot, as they call them, on macarons. So this is what our macarons look like after resting for about an hour and a half almost. And they're nice and smooth on the top and they kind of glisten. And you can actually run your fingers very gently over them and you don't pick up anything. So we have our oven preheating at 300 and then we're going to pop these in for around 17 minutes. And then I like to do a little bit less since the oven is a little extreme. So you can do like 15 minutes almost, maybe even 14 minutes. And then we're going to take them out and then we'll see how much they've risen and then we'll start on our buttercream. For our macarons out of the oven, I had them cool, and they're a little bit burnt, but that's okay. It's gonna happen. But they did get considerable amount of lift, and they look pretty good. So next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my buttercream frosting. I'm going to pipe the inside of our macarons. And we're going to fill them with buttercream. You want to go around the edge and then in the middle. And then we're going to place our macaron top on. And then we're going to swivel around until the buttercream meets the edges. And that's how you get a filled macaron. And here's our finished macarons. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Owen's Treats. I'll see you guys in the next one.